Hey everybody, how's it doing? Happy evening to you. Sorry guys, as you know, I'm still not used to waking up in the morning and that being the evening over there here in Korea. But as you see today, my internet is no longer under siege by Kim Jong-un, so we're looking good, we're feeling good, we're suited up. And not only that, but we're here with the man, the myth, the legend, who liked streaming with me so much, he came back for a second round, right? I mean, now never let it be said that Stirling Cooper can't go 2 rounds. Stirling, for those people who don't know you, tell them about yourself, tell them who you are, and try to keep it serious. We're a serious stream here today, Stirling.
God damn it, I love you, Andrew. Look, I'm not coming back for a second time because I like you. Let's make that perfectly clear. I'm only coming back.
Okay, good.
Purely to talk about the topic at hand. Because, for those of you who don't know, I am a porn star. I'm in the adult entertainment industry, and it's very topical right now to be talking about OnlyFans because of what has happened over the last week. They've flipped and they flopped a lot.
Yes, like literally, guys, like last night, I changed the title to this video because they changed their position, right? Which makes it even more interesting and makes this even more topical. Literally, we are going to probably be almost the first to cover this in a real way, not just a way that is kind of all the memes, right? Because Stirling, let's just start out with that because I just want to, get the silliness out of the way. I mean, how many McDonald's memes did you see with the OnlyFans girls? I mean, how many of those like just crazy memes did you see, over the last week?
Well, I definitely didn't see them from the OnlyFans girls. I saw them from my friends who are expert trollers. And I've seen at least a dozen over the course of the last few days. But there's all of the it's so funny, man, because like I know that there are so many competitors to OnlyFans. So many. It's like I could reel off like a dozen off the top of my head. Like
go ahead, go ahead, but like at least a couple, because I think that's important because a lot of people don't know that there are competitors, and I think that I think just because everybody knows what OnlyFans is, like literally, even here in Korea, if I said OnlyFans, people would get it, right? Despite the fact that those IPs are supposed to be blocked, right? But people will understand what it is because the name has gotten out there. Just like if you say P-Hub. People know what you're talking about, or the hub. People know what you're talking about, even though that's not the only resource, right?
Absolutely. I mean, look, off the top of my head, okay, we've got Fansly, Fancentro, I Want Clips, Many Vids, Clips for Sale. We've got other subscription variants. We've got Peachly. We've got, I'm just like this, without even really thinking, like, okay, boom. We've got like half a dozen there, bang. Like, there's so many friggin' alternatives to this site, and they've been around, like just for fans, loyal fans. Like I can keep going.
I've seen loyal fans.
Like these have been around for a few years too, because OnlyFans were the first one. Like it was the first mover. You know what I mean? They had the first mover advantage. They got most of the traction, but network advantage. Various girls have so like there was two kind of strategies. There was the girls who were like, okay, we're gonna jump on OnlyFans because it's the buzz in the name. And there was girls who were like, well, actually, it was kind of 3 strategies. There was girls who were like, I'm going to diversify across all of these and hire like a social media manager or whatever to post my content across all of them. And then there was the girls who were like, screw these guys. They're taking advantage of models. And then they went to like a competitor site instead and just drove their traffic there. I know a few big girls, big name girls. This is before this whole kerfuffle this week.
Before the controversy.
Yeah, before the controversy, who basically did that.
So there were girls. So let me ask, because I have one category. You say there are people who left because they take advantage of girls because OnlyFans takes advantage of models. Is that what? So what's the claim there? Let me just understand that, because here's the thing. Throughout all of this, by the way, Stirling, throughout all of this, OnlyFans has been virtue signaling, has been making those corporate statements like, oh, we support our content providers, and we do this and that. But you're telling me that a corporation that says they support their content creators is also screwing them over? I am shocked, Stirling.
Mate. So it's the funniest shit. This week has been hilarious for me because I'm a bit of a troll. I don't know. And just seeing the number of women like OnlyFans girls, porn stars, absolutely freaked the f out, like losing their shit over this, and they'll post stuff online like, "You should give us a like," because they'll go to like alternative platforms and they'll be like, "You should give us 100% of our earnings. You're taking advantage of our bodies." Like dickhead. Sorry to swear on your channel, Andrew. Do you not realize?
It's good. We're swear friendly.
We're swear friendly. Okay. Do you not realize like the risks involved in the payment processing, which we'll get to. We'll cover that, which is the main kind of crux of what I really want to talk about today. But
you're telling me that they should get 100% of the proceeds and take and like literally give the girls 0% of the burden? It's like what?
What? Tell me in one sentence that you don't know anything about business. Like, I mean, come on.
Clearly
like,
these girls don't, though. Clearly they do. A lot of them
don't. Like it's like, I mean, this is part of like what we'll get into, but adult is a very, very risky category for payment processors and banks to deal with. Like, okay, something like Patreon. I mean, even Patreon takes like a giant chunk, and Patreon isn't like officially adult friendly. You know, there's like a bunch of platforms. Let's say like, because OnlyFans wasn't the same way that the Hub. Let's just say that the Hub was a copycat of YouTube, basically, but just for adult stuff. Is the same way that OnlyFans is basically a copycat of Patreon, or like if you like a couple of variants of.
It's an adult Patreon. It's an adult Patreon because it took the core model of Patreon, and a lot of other places have done this because Patreon kicked out adult content. They also kicked out controversial content, right? I mean, I think the most famous was Jordan Peterson, right? I mean, they kicked out Jordan Peterson at some point. Didn't Alex Jones have a Patreon? I don't know. I think somebody else had one too. But they kicked out pretty much anybody who they don't agree with politically. They kicked out everybody in the adult industry. Although it's interesting, they still have like adult industry, but they still have like other stuff like adult games and stuff like that on it. So it's kind of weird. They like Patreon will like they'll like pretend this stuff isn't, you know, it's all this sort of gray area, which once again makes it fascinating for me. And one of the reasons why I wanted to talk about it, you know, just for everybody in the audience to understand this is like a massive like legal and regulatory gray area. Like, and I love the gray areas because they kind of show us what happens a little bit in the Wild West. And also when corporations are making decisions that they're not required to do by law, right? Like Patreon was not required by law to ban, you know, that sort of content. There was nothing illegal about that sort of content. That's what I want to be very clear. They weren't breaking laws, right? Because if you have content, they're breaking laws, right? You know, for example, there's girls, we talked about this in our last stream. If there's girls that are being like sex trafficked or videos that are up where you don't have permission to use, stuff like that, that's illegal. That's gotta go, right? But if, you know, you're having people who are consensually putting up this information, consensually, you know, host content, right? A whole different legal nexus. It's not illegal. The problem is that the companies are saying, we do not want to process that. We do not want to process that. So, let's start here. Yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna say there's a big difference between.
What I was gonna say is, we got
the lag between us. There's a big difference between what like the situation that we talked about the other day with the a few weeks ago with the Hub, right, and what caused MasterCard and Visa to dump them, versus why OnlyFans made this decision like a week or so ago, whatever. They're actually two very different cases because on OnlyFans, and if you want to post stuff, if you want to post content, want to post adult material, you have to verify yourself first. Like you can't post without verifying yourself. So it's a totally different scenario. I just want to make that clear for everyone listening.
Yeah, and I think that, yes, Jay Miller brought it up in the chat, by the way, about Patreon, about Lauren Southern. Yeah, I remember, and I forget exactly what she said. Maybe it was something like I think she may have talked about like replacement rates or something like that. Any one of the many things you can't really talk about. Like she's a Canadian political person on the right. And of course, you know, Stirling, all those, you know, alt-right all those girls who are like on the right until it comes to talking about feminism, then they're suddenly back on the left, you know. Was it Tommy Lahren? It's like she was on the right until you start talking about the fact that she can't find a husband, you know, and wonders why. But you know, a lot of these things had their anchors in politics. But once again, I don't think politics is entirely driving this, because I think one of the things, Stirling, is, you know, a lot of people say, hey, and a lot of the girls say, for example, even, you know, shout out to when I was in the studio, I was in the back watching your interview with Sarah J. And, I think she was going on about the religious right. And I think that may have been true in the past, right? Maybe in the past, true. But I do not think, and correct me if I'm wrong, but to me, when I look at any industry, I really don't see the religious right controlling almost anything right now in terms of sectors of the economy, certainly not banking.
Absolutely, man. That is a very, very common trope argument that you'll see from girls on Twitter. I think Brandy Love even tweeted that out this week, and I'm sure a couple other girls tweeted it out, that they think they put out this argument that, like, oh, the reason the banks are against us, against adult content or whatever, is because they're run by religious right-wingers. That's the argument they'll put out. Like, whether or not that, here's the thing, like, whether or not the people who run banks are like religious right-wing Christians or not, which,
right?
I mean, maybe they are. I don't know. I don't actually know.
Maybe they are. Yeah, who
knows? But that is like, you don't think they like money? Like, you know what I mean? If they're running a bank, for God's sake, you don't think that they like money? It's like mega churches seem to like money a lot. They're quite religious, but it comes down to then we'll get into the nitty gritty of this. It comes down to the risk profile. It's a case of numbers and a risk profile, which is primarily why banks put such a big amount of pressure on OnlyFans, and the CEO made this decision, but which he's since backpedaled on.
Yeah, and let's definitely get into that. And one thing I'll say is you're absolutely right, because I mean, number one, banks do like money, corporations like money, right? And on top of that, you see them funding all sorts of things on the left, including things that are extremely dangerous, right? They're funding, Antifa groups, they're funding other groups that are violent groups on the left, right? And they're not denying their payment processes. If this was something that was only on the religion, you would see them defunding, you'd see Visa and MasterCard saying, hey, we're not processing payments to Planned Parenthood. We're not processing payments to, whatever left wing, to Bernie, I mean, once again, they like money. They're going to take those. I don't care if they're on the right. They're not showing that they're on the right. Right. So,
that's a perfect a demonstration of it there. That's a perfect demonstration of it, is the fact that they're not like defunding all these other like very left wing things. Like if they were religious right wingers, they would immediately, and that was the reason they were doing it, then they would immediately ban like, Planned Parenthood or whatever. Like they would immediately.
Right. AOC, everybody, every left wing politician, everybody would be banned. Right. They just take them all off. Right. Sort of like what we're seeing happening with a lot of social media platforms and people on the right. You're like, I can point clearly if you say, hey, well, which platforms are banning people on the right? Well, I'm like, all right, you got Facebook, you got Instagram, you got TikTok, pretty much almost all the major social media platforms, but I can't point to any on the left. I can't point to anywhere on the left where you're seeing a lot of people being banned. I mean, and by the way, anybody in the chat, if you guys can think of one place that's banning people on the left, let me know, because look, I can't think of it. You guys are really smart, so maybe you guys can think of it. But let me talk about what you brought up, Stirling, which is when you say the risks, what are we looking at? Because are we looking at potential charges that aren't going through, transfers that aren't going through? Are we looking at chargebacks? What sort of risks are the banks taking on when they process?
I think this is
adult.
I'm gonna share with you this really cool infographic. We can scroll through together. I think would be really beneficial for everybody else. And let's just scroll down to this infographic. Bang! Here we go.
Okay, got it. I'm gonna add it to the stream. There you go. Okay, got it.
Cool. Why adult merchants are deemed high risk. Cool. So let's roll through this. Well, reputational risks. Cool. Adult content is taboo, obviously. It can damage the bank or the payment processor's reputation. Cool. Reputational risks contribute to adult merchants typically paying higher processing fees. Pay attention to any of the women who might be watching this who have OnlyFans accounts and wondering why OnlyFans takes 20%.
I don't know how many women who watch me are on OnlyFans, but if you are, welcome to the channel. Welcome to Legal Mindset, where I teach you to be your own judge.
I know girls who are lawyers who've done OnlyFans.
No. Oh, hey, Stirling. So do I. Don't ask me how I know. Is what I'm going to say. Don't ask me how I know. But I know people that, they throw on a mask or they just drop the level of the camera below their face. And it's game on.
It's game on, mate. Continuing on, rampant fraud. Okay, adult industry is rampant with fraud. and it's actually interesting that this is a good infographic on this, because it's like there's real fraud, like someone steals a credit card and then goes and subscribes to some girl's OnlyFans account or whatever, right? That does actually happen. And then there's friendly fraud, which is like, okay, customer tries to, this happens more often than not, is dude pays for some photos from a chick or whatever, or subscribes to a porn site, and then tries, so it's a legitimate transaction. He actually did buy it and wanted to buy it. And then he calls his bank and's like, oh, someone stole my card. Oh, I wouldn't dare buy porn. He tries to like backpedal and basically weasel his way out of it.
Gets caught by his wife, you know. And...
Or here's my theory on this, where most of this comes from. He jerked off and then felt in extreme shame and was like, oh no. And he has to like charge
that. That actually is like that actually checks out, especially with, you know, a lot of the people being, for example, this is something that we talked about, like a lot of the very religious, which is true, you know, being ones who are the frequent, you know, users of adult products, right? You know, so you're going through this shame cycle, you know, where it's like this erotic shame cycle, because, you know, to a certain extent, it's like keeping them in the wheel, you know, and it's just really toxic, I think.
Absolutely. And then last but not least, this is actually probably the most important part, is like the chargeback rate. They get increased chargebacks. Much more higher frequency of chargebacks in the adult entertainment industry than anywhere else. Which is basically chargeback versus the credit card payment. And that is the main reason. Like the chargeback rate is the primary reason why like adult payment processors charge so much, and like or why adult is deemed high risk by the banks, right?
And is because I know you mentioned it in the notes, and I kind of was reading through a little bit of your show notes for this. Is CC Bill the largest adult payment processor? And where do you know a little bit about them, like where they're from and what the kind of their origin story was? Because like, actually, I'd heard of them, so I know they've been around for a while.
Yeah, but I actually don't know much about the background and much about their history and stuff. But I know that they're the ones who take the payments for like all of the major subscription sites, like all the brands that people might be familiar with, like your Brazzers, your Reality Kings, blah, blah, blah. They're all run through CC Bill.
And that's probably because, hey, those guys have experience with it. You know, once again, and I talk about this a lot with a lot of things. You know, if you're going to hire somebody, you hire a specialist, right? You know, if you want to get fit, you hire a fitness coach. You don't hire somebody who, you know, is going to give you financial advice and then tell you to do some, you know, to drink your water. You know, you hire somebody who's a specialist, right? You want to know about sex, you talk to Stirling Cooper, right? You know, I mean, like you talk to people who are very, very specialized in what they do, right? Very, very niched. And those guys are niched in processing payments for the adult industry. So they probably have a lot of experience, templates filled out, a lot of ways that, you know, people they can talk to get these things resolved quickly. So I'm sure that they have a huge advantage in that market. Like you can't just start up an adult payment processor. You'll go broke like very, very quickly, because it's just it's very heavily, you know, it's a controversial area, right?
And this is sort of what this, you know, the argument of like just build your own OnlyFans or whatever.
Well, I do have a solution, but I want to save it to the end, because I want to get through this before I get into it, because I had an idea, and I'm like, and honestly, Stirling, maybe this is me giving away an idea, like a huge business idea, because this might be massive, but we'll wait. I want to save it to the end. I want to save the juice for the end, especially for those out there who need to smash the like button, subscribe, comment, whatever. Stay engaged with the video. The more you engage with the other, the better we do in the algorithm, and the more we can get content out like this. So Stirling, let me, circling back to it though, I want to actually go back to the backlash against it, right? In terms of the backlash, was it really because everybody came against this, everybody was kind of fighting this, that you think the pushback eventually overturned the decision?
You know what? I just look. I'm gonna my secret theory, right? Everyone will think that's okay. I mean, like they're not idiots. Like they like you don't have to be Nostradamus to predict that this was gonna happen. That like if OnlyFans had changed their policy, thousands, millions of like angry women would have taken to Twitter and just expressed their anger. Like I don't think anyone in like the boardroom was like, no, they'll be fine. Don't think anyone thought that for a split second.
They'll be happy. Although,
so you knew that was
Sterling. It was, though, just to clarify, like the actual ban, because I think people maybe misunderstand the ban. The ban was technically sexually explicit content, which to me means porn, but does not mean nudes or lewds, right? I mean, so there's some content that might be prohibited, might be in that like gray area where they're like, all right, you can post nude photos, but you can't post riding the the Sibian rider or whatever you're doing, or you in the gangbang. That's not going to be something that you're going to be able to show, right? So that there is a little bit of a split there.
That's correct. Yeah, the terms of service they updated with specified that and specified like so it basically would have been like Playboy, where it's like tasteful nudes would have been allowed. Yeah, but the important one the important thing that they were banning, no, it wasn't even like, okay, yeah, they're banning like penis on vagina action.
Yes. So
the other even more important thing they were banning is masturbatory material. So the girl can't even touch herself. So that was that is actually like a larger piece of the pie. Well, to a degree, a large piece of the pie. Like that, they could have a lot of girls probably wouldn't have left if that was still around. Because there's a lot of girls who just do solo content.
Yes.
And they can make a living that way. But if by banning that as well, that's really what pissed everybody off. Because they were only pissed off. I mean, you're isolating, like, don't get me wrong, there is a ton of girls who suck dick on the camera for OnlyFans.
But there's also a lot of girls. I mean, once again, I've seen a lot of girls that post, in their bios, they'll say, "Hey, it's all non-nude," it's all there's no sex, or this is, only nude photos, but nothing else. Like they'll post that, especially after the whole Bella Thorne thing, right? We can go back into that because I think that did change the way that people have to disclose their information before somebody goes and subscribes to your account and then pays money and then doesn't get what they expected.
Yeah, basically. With the whole benefit, like, I mean, there was a very clear push from OnlyFans over the last year to try, because they want to grow. They're a corporation. They want to grow. They want to expand. They were trying to get in more quote unquote influencers, right? I mean, because the adult entertainment industry built them from the ground up. They started with adult, but they already had all the adult fans because every porn star, every major big name porn star was already on OnlyFans. So like they already had that audience. So how do you grow? Well, you grow by getting in girls like Bella Thorne, minor celebrities, and dragging all their thirsty, simpy fans from Instagram onto the platform, right?
Yeah.
And even if it's just with a bit of side boob, you get them in that way.
Just a bit of side boob goes a long way, Stirling. And by the way, shout out to Josh from eLift Program, which says, seems dumb for OnlyFans to give up their main source of income. Yeah, I mean, I think that they realized, I think in the boardroom, Stirling, my thing is they probably thought, okay, we'll retain X percentage, right? Like, for example, when there's a car crash, right? There's actuarial tables that say, okay, well, this is the acceptable amount of risk. This is how much we're going to pay out. So I'm sure they did a calculus. Okay, we're going to lose 25% of our business. That's fine. But look, all these other people are going to stay because they offer this other content. But when they got pushback from maybe larger than that percentage, right? They said, "Oh shit, we're in some trouble. We're seeing people leave at a rate that's higher than we expected. We're seeing these girls go to family." Yeah.
Those actuary tables were way off.
Yeah. By the way, Stirling, important question from Gander: is Stirling tiny or is that chair enormous?
This chair is enormous.
I will say no. Stirling is not a tiny man. He is shorter than me, but so are most people in America. Well, even in Australia too. But yeah, that chair is huge. I've sat in it myself. It is pretty massive. However, Dark Winter is inevitable. Shout out to Kevin Samuels. So actually, that is actually a great quote, by the way, Jay Miller. Kevin Samuels was actually the one who first kind of, at least in the manosphere, at least in the area that I'd sorry, I think I'm back. Let me find.
You're back.
So Stirling, Kevin Samuels seems to have predicted that there would be kind of a winter for OnlyFans. What did you hear that clip? Did you think anything about that one?
No, I'd never heard that actually, but that's pretty poignant.
So here's what it is. Let me summarize it like the TLDR version. But pretty much he said that because so many girls are getting on that, like the ordinary girls and like everybody's going to be on, there's a flood. It's going to saturate the market, right? You know, and it's going to kind of eventually have an effect where there's going to be a just drop in demand, right? Because there's so much supply. Like you're creating like a massive glut of supply, and it's just a kind of an oversupply situation. And also because the money is so easy and it's so easy for anybody to get into it, that it's eventually going to be cracked down on. Eventually people are going to crack down on it. Eventually people are, there was going to be a winter, dark winter for the girls that went on OnlyFans, made that their only source of revenue. And then, boom, it gets hit. And Jay Miller, if I didn't summarize that right, or if there's anything else to add, put that in the chat for me, please. But I think that's it. So, I mean, what do you think about that? Just general hypothesis.
Oh, I think that's very accurate. Like it's basic laws of supply and demand, man. Like you're gonna eventually. There's only so many buttholes you want to see. I will add that I forgot to kind of summarize my point about why I think they flipped back. Why I think they flipped the decision back. And I think so. Obviously, I genuinely think that they made the decision initially because of pressure from the banks. I think that's when you understand like what adult payment processes have to go through, the risk profile is quite high. I think that's actually what ended up getting them there.
Well, they said that. By the way, they made a statement that it was that I think it's Stokely is the CEO and founder, Tim Stokely. He said literally, this was the quote. He said, "Bank of New York, Mellon, Metro Bank, and J.P. Morgan." He said, "Bank of New York, Mellon flagged and rejected every wire transfer linked to them, while Metro Bank in 2019 closed their corporate account with no notice." And they said that J.P. Morgan was particularly aggressive in closing accounts of sex workers or any business that supports sex workers. And of course, they all declined. All the banks declined to comment. So, I mean, that kind of lines up, right?
Yeah, and MasterCard was set to bring in tougher rules specifically for adult merchants on surprise, October 1st, which is ironically the exact same day that OnlyFans were going to update their terms of service. Gee,
OnlyFans October, right?
Yeah, I wonder why.
OnlyFans October comes before November, right?
Yeah, exactly. But the reason why I think they flipped back, okay. So they had this giant backlash. The banks pressured them. They had this giant backlash, right? They're losing like OnlyFans in 2020. OnlyFans made $253 million, something like that, $253 million. And the real project that was just 2020. Like we're already into like halfway through 2021. They probably done like easily $500 million, if not $1 billion this year. They were projected to make like $2 billion this year. So why would you set $2 billion on fire? That's a very good question to ask. And I think that I personally think that somebody high up in OnlyFans basically went to with a direct connection to the major banks, went and greased some wheels, because otherwise, because there's no explanation of the problem is still technically there. Like the reason why they would have made the change in the first place is still there. The banks don't like them, and the banks are gonna the risk profile is high. So like, why on earth would they be able to keep doing business? And the only thing I can think of is like somebody had a good connection and actually talked directly to someone who can make an influential decision and be like, all right, well, for you, because you guys have proven you're bringing in a lot of money for us. Like, okay, let's shake hands and let's make this work. I personally think that's how things. I don't think for a second that it was the backlash on social media from girls. I actually don't think that was it.
Really? So you don't think? Because I had another hypothesis, which I thought might be possible, is that maybe banks that they weren't working with, right? Because they were working with certain banks, right? You're not obviously working with every bank at the same time, right? So maybe another bank stepped in and was like, "Yo, if these guys don't want your money, we want your $2 billion, right? Work with us. We'll be willing to take your money, right? We'll process, we'll deal with that stuff. If JP Morgan and these guys don't want it, we want it, right? Because it's a lot of money. But that's almost the same scenario, though. It's like, and either way, there was probably some horse trading, right? Because I imagine that, like you said, there's going to have to be some grease on that, because they're saying, look, we're taking a risk, so you're going to have to increase our cut, right? And I will not be surprised if OnlyFans in the near future increases the percentage that they're taking from content creators to pay for that. I would not be surprised.
Neither do I. I think that's
Which
also
is,
a very, very likely hypothesis. What you just stated.
but that's also the way that platforms develop. Let's look at YouTube. We're on YouTube right now. YouTube didn't take this percentage back in the day. They took less and less and less. They took more and more and more over time, right?
Yeah.
As a platform matures, it switches from growth, right? There's a point at which, for example, any social media, in the beginning, you just want to get users, right? You just want to get users. Now you start to switch into capture mode, where you've got the users, you pretty much max that out. Your growth is not as exponential as it once was, right? You're not going to get, quadruple the amount of OnlyFans girls. I think that everybody who wants to be on OnlyFans is on OnlyFans, and the girls that are becoming of age and wanting to be on OnlyFans are either instantly getting on it or not, right? I mean, they're not going to market themselves more or get their name out there more and cause a massive spike, right? So the only way they can grow now is by capturing more of that revenue or working with market partners.
Yeah, and it's interesting to note that
in an exponential way.
Yeah, it's interesting to note that apparently they were seeking funding, which is really, like, I don't know, like, it seems kind of weird to me. Like, so I made this in our notes here. So OnlyFans is majority owned by Ukrainian-American porn entrepreneur Leonid Radvinsky. And they was reportedly seeking a round of funding that would value OnlyFans at more than $1 billion, according to Bloomberg. Now that's like, here's the thing I'm thinking about. Like, where, like, I don't know what they'd even use that funding for. Like, they have all the press in the world.
What are they going to do? Yeah,
like they've got all the press in the world. Everyone, it's a household name at this point across the world. Like, literally, like, everyone's signing up. People are spending money. Like, I don't know what you'd even use that funding for, really. But I mean,
here's the only thing I can think of is that if they were trying to expand their services that they offer, or some way, because they're only going to raise that money to make them more money, right? Yeah. So what can make them more money? So it's not going to be just increasing the fees. You can change the line of code and do that, right?
Yeah.
One potential idea would be if they were offering services to get these girls started, right? To get their accounts started. They were having people who were essentially, because right now that's a gray market, right? It's kind of something we don't talk about, but there's a lot of guys who manage girls' OnlyFans. See how easily I confuse Instagram with OnlyFans. But if you had people at corporate that were doing that and capturing some of that money, right? That's a potential area of expansion for them. Although that's a very risky area to go into, like extraordinarily risky. So I don't know whether they'd be wanting to do that because of all the allegations they could get, potential lawsuits. You have employment law issues, so all sorts of other issues. But I just can't think of much for them to expand their business model. I mean, it seems like their business model is very straightforward.
Yeah. I mean, if their expansion model was like, okay, we're gonna start pimping women. I agree. It's very risky.
Jay Miller says perhaps money laundering. That's always possible. Always possible. But it isn't actually. One thing about money laundering is, by the way, and you guys probably know this from the million, crime shows you've seen, but typically you look for cash businesses to money launder. Because then you can process a lot of cash through, right? And really not know the source and really not trace the source. So typically when you're looking at crimes and looking at money laundering, you're looking at cash heavy businesses. Here's something. Not legal advice. Not legal advice. This is not the illegal mindset, despite that being an awesome name for a channel. Like welcome to the illegal mindset. But yeah, guys. So it's just every time I hear that, it makes me crack up. All right. So here's one thing I thought about, Sterling, and tell me, this may be a crazy idea, but I know you're down for crazy ideas. Well, actually, let me start with this. Do you see any of OnlyFans competitors as really taking off in the wake of this?
Yeah. And here's why. I may or may not have some insider information.
That's why I bring you on this, because you may or may not know the insider information.
I'm plugged in. And what you touched on before, you mentioned this before briefly. What you got to understand is a lot of OnlyFans accounts, especially for the bigger name girls, the ones that actually make money, are not run by the girl themselves. They're run by a management team, right? So a lot of big studios, so we say like OnlyFans studios, OnlyFans management teams who are running multiple girls have basically said, well, we're going to move to this platform. Because like at the time of OnlyFans making this decision like a week ago, a few days ago,
right.
So they're basically like, well, we're gonna go to this platform. And the thing that made them decide which platform to go to was that platform's relationship with the payment processor, because the payment processor is the most important part of this business, of this kind of model. Because it's not easy to establish a relationship with them. It's not easy to establish. You can't just say, that's what kind of throws the whole idea of like build your own to the wind. It's like, oh, why don't these porn stars just build their own OnlyFans? Well, you can code it, and it's not that difficult to code it and create the UI. But the hard part is to start creating a relationship with CC Bill. That's the hard part. Like that just doesn't come out of thin air, So yeah, that's the guy.
So they're essentially CC Bill is essentially a gatekeeper, is what you're saying. CC Bill is like the gatekeeper of whether you can get into the Citadel, pretty much.
That's just an example of a payment processor. They're one of they're basically the biggest one, but they're not the only one. And I don't think OnlyFans even used CC Bill, if I'm recalling correctly. These are different one, or several different ones. Yeah, but basically that's like the two main. The two competitors that had the best relationship, from my knowledge and from what I've heard behind the scenes, that had the best relationship with payment processors were Fansly and Fancentro. And it seems like Fansly was the big winner over the last few days. But then in the last 24 hours, OnlyFans have flip-flopped their decision. So now it's going to be interesting to see whether or not. So all these studios moved over to big names moved over to Fansly, and it's going to be interesting to see what happens now, whether they move back, whether they stay there, then like, fuck you, we're moving here. Like, because the important thing to consider is how hard is it for the actual subscribers to move to another platform, and are they going to? Because consumers are lazy typically, especially if they've got the dick in their hand, they're even lazier. So that is the big crux of like, where do the fans actually go? And the fans will tend to follow the big name girls. So if the more big name girls that head to one particular platform or stay on another platform is going to really dictate the market.
Yeah, and I think that's a very good point there. It's like you have to have a lot of major movers, because social media, social networks is kind of like who is there, right? Like, for example, when Trump was banned off of Twitter, right? That a lot of people migrated off of Twitter at that point, because there were people who literally, and even liberals, right, who were just the Trump reply guys. They were just on there to reply to Trump and say something snarky or retweet it and say, oh, he's so dumb. So when you lose these huge forces in a social media, right? If you say, okay, we're going to kick off, Dan Bilzerian off of Instagram, or, once again, we had Trump off Twitter, any of these guys who are these giant whales in that ecosystem, that really impacts that ecosystem. Like you said, if you lose the top, 1% of creators on OnlyFans, you pretty much lost OnlyFans. The top 1% are usually moving a massive amount of volume on that platform. And I'll get,
absolutely,
yeah, and I'll what was that guy's going to say? Totally derail my question, but let's get to BB's question right here. This is for you, Stirling. So I have a question. Is it really true these women actually get paid 6 figures a month or a year? That's what I've been hearing. Sorry, just joined. No, all good, BB. What's up? Good to see you in the chat there. So yeah, is that facts or fiction, Stirling?
So I was actually about to kind of go into this when you mentioned like the top 1%. So if you're in like the top couple of percent of OnlyFans, and if you're in the top 1%, you're earning, like, if I remember my numbers correctly, you're easily earning like $100K a month.
$100K a month. If the top 1%.
No. It's actually under. No. I'm misquoting. It's under. It's like in the top 0 point. Like, is it like, so you're less than like 1%. Like 0 point.
Oh, like the 0.5%, like the top 0.5% or something like that.
Yeah. Then they're earning exactly. Then they're earning like $100K a month. If you're, for example, it's a perfect example, because a lot of girls will run around quoting, like on Twitter, especially, they'll be like, "I'm in the top blah % of OnlyFans," and it'll be on their bio.
Yes, it's in their bio, yeah.
And girls but you got to remember that number factors in all the users of OnlyFans, not just the creators,
including the debt accounts and everything else that's there. Yeah.
Yeah. So if you're making, like, for example, if a girl is in the top 15% of OnlyFans, she's probably only making like $400 a month or something, to give you an idea of like the difference, right?
Yeah, which is pretty small. I mean, once again, I'm not saying that it's nothing, right? Because there's some girls who they'll do stuff for $400 a month. I mean, that's what they want to do. They'll take the extra $400 a month, right? I mean, I literally know girls that I've seen on the internet and I've seen other places that have said, hey, look, I'll do whatever, just come on the channel. It'll be even for small amounts, they're going to be willing to do whatever because they need the money, right?
Yeah.
But I think it's very important because I think it's not being marketed to average girls that way, right? They're marketing the 0.5%, 0.1% lifestyle for every girl, and that's just not true.
No, and so to give you an example, okay, so a girl who's if you're in the top, I'm giving you guys some numbers so you might be able to go home and plot a graph. Let's just say that. Right. So if a girl is in the top 1.5% of OnlyFans, she was making about $30,000 a month.
Yeah,
so there's another number to plot.
Which is pretty good. But once again, you're in a very high minority. If you're in that percentile of kind of any occupation, you're going to be making a lot of money, or any industry, you're going to be making a lot of money.
Oh yeah. So the vast majority of women on OnlyFans are not making 6 figures a month. Like the ones you will have heard of, there are girls who are making $100K a month plus on the platform. That is 100% true. But the vast majority, we're talking like a small amount, like probably like
under 100, right?
Under 100 maybe accounts, that
are making like I would say probably 100 accounts that are making over 100K a month, like, or less. Like, yeah. I mean, that's a pretty stupid amount of money in a large subscriber base, right? Because there's only so many you're going to be subscribing to, and a lot of these people, they subscribe to one, they're not subscribed to. Some of them are.
Yeah.
You're simping for one chick. So big problem here. So here's another thing I want to bring up, because this is my little thesis and I want to give us I want to give a little bit of time to think about this. Because, do you remember back in the day, Stirling? Because I know you are a man of culture and a man of many means. Do you remember Spice Road back in the day?
Spice Road?
Yeah, the old crypto site with Spice Road, where you could buy drugs, you could buy, there were sex services, there were all sorts of stuff. You could buy pretty much anything off this.
Don't you mean Silk Road?
Silk Road. Sorry, Silk Road. Yeah. There you go. Same thing. The Silk Road and Spice Road, whatever. They're all going through. It's all coming from China. No, I'm joking. But the point is that Silk Road, right? You had Silk Road. Silk Road was selling stuff that was illegal. It was taken down. Thank you, 90 Knots. Sometimes I still haven't had my coffee here in the morning here, so pardon moi. But anyways, the day they were taken down, their founder was arrested because they were doing illegal stuff, right? They were doing patently illegal stuff. But we've established, right, that there's nothing that is on OnlyFans, right, that is illegal, or there's so little of it as to be negligible, right? Yeah. No more than there'd be something illegal that's on Vimeo or any video upload site, right? There's going to be something that's illegal before it gets a DCMA request and then it gets taken down, or some other request that gets taken down. But that being said, right, do you think there's a massive opportunity? Because if I think about unbanking yourself, if I think about saying fuck you to payment processors, because by the way, guys, this is not just about OnlyFans. And one of the reasons why I did this, one of the reasons why this is so important, one of the reasons why I said stay around to the end, is because you don't understand this is about freedom and the freedom of our speech, which is being under attack in so many different ways, right? Because I view this as freedom of expression, freedom of speech. I mean, this, is pretty much squarely freedom of speech. And one of the reasons why I've always been, since back in the day, I was more of a classic liberal. I believe in, hey, all these things should be free. People should be free to make adult content if they want. They should also be free to say what they want, regardless of whether you politically agree with that or not, right? But banks and payment processors are gatekeeping this, right? They're stopping this. And by the way, we're gonna definitely have Stirling comment on Australia because he definitely has some thoughts on that. I'll tell you that right now. But that being said, Do you see a niche for like crypto? Because once again, Sterling, if I think about unbanking yourself, I think about getting away from these payment processors. If I want to pay for something to, let's say, I want to pay you something, right? I can just send you crypto, right? And you're like, all right, mate, it's good. All good here. And we're square because we both are crypto literate, right? Now we don't have as many services that do that on a one-to-one basis, right? You can't have every OnlyFans person saying, oh, directly send me crypto to my wallet. You'd want some intermediary that's kind of keeping it at least a little bit fair, or some sort of smart contract, right? But do you see like kind of crypto as a potential way, hey, now you can process payments, tell the banks to go fuck themselves, and boom, you've got a platform.
They already exist. So there are.
Okay, I didn't know that. See, I didn't know that. That's why I asked you.
That's why you got the right guy. You got the right guy for the job on this. So there are right now the two big players in like the crypto version of OnlyFans, or the crypto equivalent of like payment processing for adult. They both have ridiculous names. Spank Pay and Cum Rocket.
Wait, whoa. I thought Cum Rocket was just a fake coin that was like did nothing. Is that coin actually linked to a site?
No, so the way
coin is linked to a site.
The way their value proposition with Cum Rocket and Spank Pay are that they are basically they're a way for you to tip content creators in crypto. Oh. That's their value proposition. So and I think there's actually a couple more. I just can't remember their name. They're like meme coin, a few more ridiculous named cryptos that are based around that idea. But the idea is like they will allow you to like, tip a creator in in crypto, be it like Spank or Cummies. Those are the two coin names. They're ridiculous. But that's the best. This is like the start of that. Yeah. Here's the problem. Here's the problem that I'll say is that you can't rebill with crypto because you have to approve transactions. Even though that is not if you know the business, if you know the OnlyFans business, that's actually not where most of the money is made. Most of the money is made in direct messaging and selling pay-per-view content, which is fine. But the thing is, so here's the key difference, right? Here's why, at least for the time being, it's not as big of an alternative. Well, there's a couple of key differences. One, that most consumers don't actually have crypto, which is a fair assessment. Most actually don't. And two, as much as I'm just saying, as much as I would love for everything to move to crypto, I would absolutely love the adult industry to move to crypto. I would love it, but it's a bit slower than this. The other reason is that so going back to my previous point, the reason why subscriptions don't actually make the majority of income on OnlyFans is so you do have rebilling, cool. Most of the money on OnlyFans is made in the DMs, in selling people pay-per-view content. And the way that works is the customer has already entered their credit card information into the OnlyFans system. And then you send them a piece of pay-per-view content, which has like a locked button, and they can't see it. And then they click a button, and their credit card is automatically billed, and then they see the content. You can't do that with crypto. They have to it's not as easy. Anyone who understands like website building and like copywriting, and like the easier a transaction is, the more likely someone is going to consume a product, right? The path of least resistance. So that is a path of very little resistance. Like their credit card information is already there. They just click a button and their billing is charged and they get what they want. With crypto, you can't do that yet. You have to I have to copy your address in, and I have to confirm the transaction and click send. Like even though that's like a couple of more steps, it's still enough to make it far less profitable. So that is unfortunately why.
That's an area of expansion, though. I mean, that's why, like, I shout out to Josh, he left program, all these other guys. That's something that I like what you said there, and I wanted to capture that before we got too much off of it. You said we can't do it yet, but that's something that we're going, like, it's going to get figured out. Like, somebody's going to figure out reoccurring payments on crypto. Like, it's not like that's never gonna happen. Eventually, that will be possible, or there'll be some sort of wallet that allows for that, right? So you'd have to set up, this other sort of wallet that allows for recurring payments, something in that of that nature.
Yeah, I imagine so. I imagine
that's like a crypto credit card.
Yeah, that's where we're heading. I think that's where we're heading. I mean, there already are crypto credit cards actually. Crypto.com.
Celsius has one, right?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, crypto.com, Celsius, right? Celsius has one, I think. Or anyways, a lot of the centralized exchanges are having credit cards for sure. But and of course you could use that. But once again, I don't know how those payments are processed. Like I would assume that unfortunately, I think that Visa, MasterCard, or Amex probably has their clause in that one.
I think they do.
Right?
I think they do.
Right. They're just taking because Visa even recently bought up like some NFTs and they bought up crypto, as an asset, right? So clearly they're viewing it as something that, hey, this is good with us. We're going to take this as payment, right? But they're not using it to process payments, I think, as actively because they know exactly what I just told you is that that's going to be bad for their business, right? That's going to be ultimately it's going to undercut them. So
they're hedging their bets.
Okay, well exactly. They're hedging their bets, but they're not like going all in on it, right? And once again, I think that's part of the whole financial system is fighting it. We're seeing the politicians fight it, right? With the infrastructure bill. So I think it's something people are going to fight. But I think in the future, and me and you are on the same page with this. This isn't a disagreement. We both agree. It'd be great for both of us if everything goes to crypto, because then I can say exactly what I want and no issues. But let's get into this before we go, because I typically try to keep these about an hour, Stirling. So I want you to get into the Australia stuff because let's give it to them, mate.
God.
How do you feel about your entire country being locked down and the fact that, if you went back, you would have to go through a massive application process, have the potential of being denied, right? And not able to leave your own country of birth.
Yeah, mate, I'm not joking when I say I've resigned myself to the possibility that I will never see my family again. That's how seriously I'm taking this stuff.
That's dark. That's dark to say that.
Yeah. Like because I don't I'm not gonna risk the rest of my life and my future for my freedom to go back and see my family for Christmas or something at the potential risk of never being able to leave the goddamn country. You and me just helped one of our mutual employees get out of Australia.
Yep.
Jordan. Yes, we just got Jordan out. So, well,
he got called out. He got called out. Now he's famous. And of course, he gets called out on the episode that we're talking about OnlyFans. So that'll be in his permanent record forever. You're welcome.
No, he lands in like a couple of days. He lands here in the US in a couple of days.
Yes.
We don't mention his last name.
He'll be taking my room in Miami.
Immigration might see this and be like,
no, of course not. But yes. He will be in my pad in Miami, which will be great for him.
It'd be hilarious.
I did clean the couch before I left.
Hope you change the sheets too. But it's disgusting. What's happening in Australia right now? If I'm being totally honest, it's absolutely disgusting. It's disgraceful, and this is Australia right now. For anyone actually paying attention, Australia is the reason why you Americans do not give up your firearms, because this wouldn't be happening if Australia had an armed populace. You're gonna there's been some disgusting shit happening right now. Like there was I think it might have been in Brisbane, maybe it was in Sydney. They used a football stadium to forcefully vaccinate like 10,000 children, and the parents were forbidden from going and seeing and being there. There's been multiple videos circulating the internet.
That is absolutely deplorable.
Yeah, multiple videos circulating of parents trying to protect their kids and police stepping in and choke holding the parents, and then nurses dragging the screaming child away to vaccinate them. This kind of shit is just horrific. It's it's literally Orwellian. And
yes,
Australia,
that's literally 1984. Literally, this is absolutely not even. At first it was a meme. Now it's no, this is 100% real.
Yeah, and here's the thing about Australia. Australia, we call ourselves the lucky country. Because until now, we were we had all this mineral wealth, all beautiful beaches, open space, everything you could possibly want in a country. This is why our immigration policy was actually kind of harsh, because we didn't let many people in. It's a beautiful place, beautiful country, everything you could possibly want. But Australians have had it too easy for too long. We've never had to fight for what we have. We've never been invaded, right? We've never had to, like, I mean, a little bit, like, I mean, we had the Japanese bombed us in World War II a little bit in the north.
Bombed Darwin once. Yeah, I mean.
Yeah, exactly. Like nothing. So, like, Australia has never had to fight to defend its own soil, and its people, more importantly, its people have never had to fight to defend their own rights. And that is why Australia, unfortunately, I hate to say it, but Australians are pretty weak. And this is a perfect example of it because they're just rolling over and taking it. Look, like politicians should have, like, the Gilla. I don't want to say something on your channel that is going to get you banned or going to get me in trouble.
Go ahead and do it. Yeah. But I mean, as long as you don't say the word, juice. Just use the word juice, not vaccine.
Use that word. But like, politicians should have been dragged out into the streets by now.
Yes. I see what you're saying. Yes.
Like, you know what I'm saying? Like
the French Revolution brought to Australia is what you're getting.
Because it's just disgusting what they're getting away with, and the propaganda machine that is in full force in Australia right now. Like,
and it's everyone, and it's the media, it's social media, it's everybody backing them up and reinforcing.
Here's a really great tweet for anyone who's watching right now, unless Twitter's already deleted it. I think I retweeted it on my Twitter. Andrew Bogut, the former NBA player, NBA championship playing, he's Australian. Like, he was a center for the Golden State Warriors, center for a few other teams, NBA player. He put out a video on his Twitter recently, kind of exposing this. He didn't name names, but he was like, I have been offered money by certain people to make a public service announcement telling people to get the jab. So, did I say that? Was I meant to say that? Shit.
Yes.
Sorry.
No. That's good.
Telling people to do that. He was offered money for that. Obviously, whoever offered him money is a complete idiot because they don't know who Andrew Bogut is. He's very based. Like, he's super based. His tweet is fantastic. But basically, he exposed it. He was like, look, here's the reason why you're seeing all these influencers doing all these minor celebrities, because none of these people are going to get this done. Like, they're not idiots. And I mean, some of them are, but they're being offered money to push this narrative out there. Who do you think, and who's giving them all the money? You know what I mean? It's just disgusting. And so he was basically exposing it. He's like, look, I ain't doing this. I've got a conscience. I know this is not what it's supposed to be. And it's the number of cases that are in Australia. Like, no one, if you look at the fatalities, like the deaths from that thing we can't talk about in Australia, it's minuscule. It's nothing. But they're showing literally under it's like less than 100 or some shit. It's like so tiny. And like, you're going to shut down the entire country, take away everyone's rights, and then forcefully put something in their body that we've seen in America doesn't even stop it from spreading. If anything, it's exacerbating the actual infection rates, etc.
Yeah. We actually, and shout outs to actually this information, where in Colombia, where they have a 28% juice rate, right? They're actually seeing their cases and their deaths go way down, where you have Malta, Israel, a lot of the other ones that are at 80% plus, right? That are juiced up, and they're spiking in cases and deaths. So once again, you're not seeing a correlation between that. You're not seeing it at all. As much as they try to prove it, there's no correlation, right? Yeah. Between saying that this is actually going to prevent it, right? You're speculating. There's no data that supports it conclusively.
Yeah. So that's basically, my long-winded opinion on what's going on in my home country. It is disgraceful. I'm going to keep my passport because it's a useful passport, but I doubt I will ever return. So.
And I agree with that. And I think that's why I tell people, a lot of people, and I've had people from my channel message me. I had an Aussie, shout out to Eclipse. I was talking with him in the chat. He lives near where you used to, like Western Australia, right? And he's saying, look, I live out in the, more in the country. My life is still good personally. He thinks it's crazy. He thinks what they're doing is crazy, but he's one of those guys who lives out like, some of your, people or family, whatever, live on farms. They're out there in the outback. They're like, it hasn't come here yet. But my thing is, and how I responded to him is, even if it hasn't come to you yet, you should have a plan, because it may come to you one day. Just because you're not seeing it now doesn't mean that it's going to last forever. And this is sort of the old thing from Germany. Oh, first they came for them, then they came for the neighbor, and they came for you, right? And you never know, and you let it go. You stayed silent. You stayed silent when it happened to everybody else. But when it happens to you, you're going to look around and nobody is left to fight, because you didn't decide to speak up when something happened to somebody else, right? You shouldn't wait for it just to happen to you, because they will pick society apart like that. They will quash all dissent systemically, right? They're quashing dissent from the people that are speaking the loudest, the people that are protesting, the people that are most likely to fight back. They're jailing them, they're juicing them forcibly, they're juicing their children forcibly, right? Yeah. This is absolutely insane. And let me just answer this. By the way, shout out to Rihanna. Good to see you in the chat. He says, how can Aussie police and military carry this out? I mean, I'm just going to say one thing, first of all, is that if I was a policeman or in the military and I was asked to do this, that would be my resignation. I mean, I don't care if I was dishonorably discharged or whatever. I didn't get my pension. I mean, I know people have families, you know, they have things to do. I know they have to do orders, but I would just say, look, I refuse. I'm not going to do this, because frankly, what they're asking them to do is unconscionable. But what do you think, Stirling?
Ever heard the phrase, we were just following orders?
Yes. Who used that one? Who used that one?
Yeah.
You know?
I want to add something else to this. So you might have heard the story recently how they, the police force, I think it was in New South Wales, went around and basically culled a bunch of rescue dogs for...
Yes, I saw that, where they were shooting the dogs because they were saying, oh, dogs have COVID.
For purposes.
Yes.
Here is a very dark, unfortunately, a very dark sort of analysis of that.
Truth.
If you want to, let's say you have a police force, let's say you have an army, let's say you have an armed branch. One of the ways you might select for those who are more willing to follow orders is to get them to do something that most people wouldn't do, which under the guise of it's helping lives, it's saving lives. And one of those things might be to, kill innocent animals. So you're actively selecting for the officers who are probably going to be more susceptible to then go on and commit atrocities against their population. That's kind of where I'm leading that train of thought.
Did you ever see? Did you ever see the movie? The miniseries of Chernobyl?
No, I didn't watch it. No.
Miniseries where they had to go and put down. But sorry, I froze right there. But the point of the matter is that when they had to go and do that, like go put down all those dogs, the people that went and did it, either they were already the people that were completely, like you said, just to follow orders, do whatever, or they were permanently scarred and made into those people that just follow orders and do whatever. Because after you've had to do that, you're like, fuck. And you got to remember, guys, like one of the signs of a serial killer when they're looking for like serial killers or psychopaths is people who would hurt innocent animals, right? For no purpose, right? And by the way, I'm saying no purpose. Like I'm a hunter, I hunt, but I understand. I have honestly, when I hunt, I have it's kind of weird. I almost have like a spiritual connection. Like I understand this is what my ancestor did and had to do, but I'm taking a living thing's life. So I need to use this and I need to eat this, or I need to do something with this. Like, this is not for me to go and just grip and grin and just to take a photo with it and then throw it away. This thing gave its life for me. Like, it's a living thing. I'm not that much more evolved from it, but I'm doing it because this is, how we sustained ourselves as a species since the beginning of time. Right. But there's there's some thought process behind it. It's not an innocent thing. You're not doing it for no purpose, but that's a sign of a psychopath, somebody who would do that.
Absolutely.
I'm going to get this because we're popping off here. King Chris says, Andrew and Stirling in the house. Like the video. Absolutely, guys. If you haven't already, drop that like, comment, subscribe. I know we're at a weird time today. I know we conflict with some of the other shows you watch, so I appreciate you being here. I love this one from Autist, which says, finally, I can have my Sunday Bible group move to OnlyFans. That's a great one. And 90 Knots, I did not forget about her question, which is, Stirling, would you consider an LTR with an OnlyFans creator? What do you think?
Well, I mean, I was an OnlyFans creator as well. So that's like...
So yes, you would consider an LTR with yourself.
No, but here's the other thing. If I'm in a relationship with a girl, I'm running her OnlyFans.
Oh,
I'm going to run it.
Oh, there we go. That's a good one.
Because we're going to make more money. We're going to make a lot more money if I'm running it, and we're going to split the profit. So,
yeah, because you know what you're doing, and you know how to maximize the thing. And
monetization, man.
Yeah, exactly. Income stream. That's a great answer, Stirling.
My LTR is now an income stream.
Very objective, very objective. It's like, look, this is, something you can improve, and hey, you can make money, and like, look, let's look at this, guys. When you're looking at who you're dating, once again, you're in the industry, right? A lot of people, especially back in the day, the people you dated, used to be, and this sounds Machiavellian, this sounds, horrible, but we used to look at marriage not just for romance and love. We used to think about it from political, economic, financial situation, and how does this better yourself and your family? And once again, you don't have to be like evil. I mean, if you have more money and let's say you want to build a family, if your skills are complementary, you're able to work together and you're able to build something together. Once again, I think one of the big issues with men and women, and you guys know I don't do a lot of this stuff, but you guys go crazy when I talk about the dating stuff and the feminism. So I'm going to talk about it a little bit. But I think when you have a partner who complements you, that is the best possible scenario, whatever that is, whatever your strength is. If you have somebody that can complement you, be the yin yang, right? That's one. Because right now, once again, the lie is to get somebody who has similar skills and you're doing the same thing. No, because you're just repeating two different skill sets, right? If you have the same skill set, right? If you're both accountants, you're not saying, okay, well, who's the marketing guy, right? Versus if one of you is doing the books and one of you is doing the marketing and the sales, you've got a team, right? Yep. But if you're both doing the marketing and sales or both doing the books, there's a gap, right? So once again, you have to think about, I think it's smart to think about these things when you think about your relationships. This whole myth of just for love and stuff like that and not thinking about anything else, I think that's a modern creation. That's a Disney creation. That's something that was came out very, 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 very recently. And we have to get back to facts versus feelings. It's not all about the way you feel about someone, right? You can be intensely attracted to somebody who has extremely bad traits, will poison your life, right? You can have a biological attraction to somebody that is absolutely, absolutely toxic in your life. So once again, you have to think a little bit more strategically about your partners. Absolutely. That doesn't mean you're not attracted to them. That doesn't mean you don't care about them. That doesn't mean that, they are, completely hideous to you. What that means is that you're taking more factors into account than just face value. Just how do I feel about them in the moment? Are they giving me the best dopamine rush right now? Right? If you think about long-term happiness, your long-term partner should be conducive to your long-term happiness. Long-term happiness is building a process and achieving something. When you achieve something with somebody, when you have an experience, you achieve it, you have a huge bonus. Sorry for the rant there, Stirling, but
the first thought that comes into my mind.
Agree with all that?
Yeah. The first thought that comes to my mind is, how does this woman strengthen my relationship with France? Just like my ancestors would.
If I'm thinking about ascending to the French throne, how does this put me in the line of succession?
Exactly.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. And once again, guys, there's a reason why that was the way that people thought. Not just for a couple years. That was for millennia. We literally, up until the very most modern era, did not change this concept. So why is our modern concept more relevant than the principles we followed for millennia, right? Since the dawn of time, right? How are we so in our infinite wisdom with all of our, pronouns and all of our other crap we're going through right now with our lockdowns? How are we so much better than the humans who lived before that? The humans who dealt with, innate gender differences, the humans who dealt with pandemics. This is the only way that this has been dealt with in the past. We've never dealt with a pandemic like this, right?
Yeah.
Ever. And we've come out of way worse, right? And no matter what metric you want to go, whether that's infectiousness, whether you want to get death rate, whether you want to get case rate, we've been through way worse, right? This is not the worst, certainly in terms of any of those metrics, right? Effectively. And once again, that's why you have to focus on facts, not feelings, just like we're focusing on the facts behind this OnlyFans thing, not just the memes and not just the fact that girls are mad.
Look, even though those things are very, very fun to focus on as well. The memes are great.
Yeah. And I love the memes, by the way. I love the memes, guys. Keep them coming. I love them. Post them in the chat. Post them in the locals. And by the way, guys, since I forgot to plug it this time, my mistake. Please check out my legalmindset.locals.com. I post this in the chat very often, but just in case some of you are here, maybe you're Stirling's fans, maybe you come over here to watch. What you want to do is you want to come over here to my locals page, right? This is going to be the view you see as a member. You're going to see this view here. And I've still got me exemption info posted up here. And Stirling, you may not know this, but we've got a problem with the juice right now. And this is all the information that I can't host on YouTube, and I host it on Locals because this is uncensored. It's run by Dave Rubin, helped start it, right? And they don't believe in censorship. So you come over here, you've got all that information, you've got people posting all the time. Tony R, big shout out to Tony, big shout out to Jay Miller. These guys, you know, they know I went to UF, posting previews here. I post case law, I post videos. I had a great conversation on the ADA with Jay Shore. You guys really need to check out this video because it tells you how you can use the ADA to pretty much defend against anything, including the juice. So, I mean, great stuff. And you know, great comments here too. This is a great one right here, Stirling, which I always love to see. So yeah, good stuff. Check it out. And once again, it's completely for free, although you can support me if you want, just like Patreon or whatever. If you want to support me, I'd prefer you do it there because they take less, and it supports censorship rather than super chat me here. I'd rather have the dono. That being said, Stirling, let's see right here. Rihanna says, and I'm sure he's talking about dating these girls. He's saying, if you're not doing it, someone else will, right? Or if you're not, I guess maybe, and if you're not managing these girls, right, somebody else will, right? Because somebody is managing these girls, most of them, right? And then Rihanna says, we think we can transcend our own nature, and I believe it's BS, right? Absolutely. And I think, Stirling, I mean, you deal with this all the time, which is why I like talking to you. And, you know, and this is why I consider myself sort of like the classical liberal, which now is kind of alt-right, is I believe, look, sex is human nature. And sex is human nature, just like genders are human nature. Kind of stop men from wanting to have sex with beautiful women. You know, you're not going to stop men, women from wanting to be with men who are, not, handsome, successful, have their shit together, are confident, right? Who are not male feminists, right? You know, you're going to want, that's something that is in their nature. And that's a gender difference, right? That's a huge gender difference. And right, I mean, I think you've seen that, when people try to get away from their nature, particularly regarding sex, it's always a negative thing, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of how you develop like a lot of like perversions. And ironically, that's how a lot of people end up in like, or getting drawn towards pornography, is like their parents trying to repress their sexuality as in their teenage years, and like trying to shame their sexuality, et cetera, et cetera. That's a lot. I can reel off a bunch of porn stars who ended up in porn because they grew up in a very religious household that shamed sex and tried to make sex really come across as this really bad thing. So I mean, as a practical thing, I think if you're a parent, you should have like an honest conversation with your kids about like when they're in their teenage years, like, here's an honest conversation about sex. Like, here's like, it's not something to be ashamed of. It's something that's natural. Everyone, does it. Just don't run around like, don't get addicted to porn. Don't run around like getting STDs. Blah blah blah. Like have a practical conversation about it, rather than just trying to like shove it on the carpet and be like, that thing over there is bad. Don't look at it. Well, what's more likely to make someone like curious?
Yeah, exactly. By the way, guys, this is a verbal thing. Never try to eliminate the word don't, especially if you're trying to actually get somebody to do that. What you want to do is reframe that to the word do and do the opposite. Right? So, for example, if you say don't crash, you're more likely to crash than if you say drive safely, right? So you want to say drive safely because that's what you want them to do. So your mind thinks drive safe. If you want to say don't crash, you're like, oh my God, crash, because you're thinking about the thing. Or don't look at the cup. Like if I say don't look at the platypus to your right, you're going to look at the platypus, right? But if I say, hey, look to your left, the opposite of right, you're going to look to the left. I'm telling you what to do. It's affirmative. So change that. Like, for example, and I think the same thing with, people say, don't jerk off. Well, what are you going to do? You're going to go jerk off. Don't simp. You're going to go simp, right?
Yeah.
So once again, I prefer to say, hey, how about you focus on yourself? How about you improve your life? How about you, improve how you view women? How about you work on yourself, right? These are things I think which is why I love working with you, Stirling, because I know you believe them. I know you support men. I know you help people work on themselves. And you've helped a lot of guys with both physical and mental issues, right? Because you see both when you're talking to people, right, on your channel.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And one more question here before we wrap it up. Do you think that OnlyFans will inevitably reach a market cap and have a decline in overall audience? I think that's what we were talking about. But though, I love that you're putting it like market cap, it's like a crypto or a stock. Like the market cap is capped out. What would you say, Sterling, to this? I think it's back. But what do you think?
Yeah, I think if there was a market cap, we've reached it already. Like it's just it was the perfect storm for it. Like everyone being stuck indoors, everyone going out of not having a job, like especially all these women not having a job. Like it was just and then okay, that's the low hanging fruit. Like if we did reach a market cap, we already did. Or if we were going to, sorry, we already have.
You can check to help somebody else get stimmied. I don't know. I mean, it's like literally the perfect storm of, like you said, of circumstances that led to girls getting on OnlyFans, right? And the ease of accessibility, the timing. I think it's probably peaked, and if anything, it's going to fall because, like you said, a lot of those accounts are dead. A lot of those people aren't using their accounts anymore. A lot of people tried it, realized they weren't making that much money, and said, "Look, for the amount of time and effort I'm going to put into this to make $400 a month." Right? I could go and do something else and make more than that. I could be a stripper for making more money than that. Right? To the extent that those are open. Right? And now that things are reopened and some of those other avenues are open now, they can go back and do those other things. And also in the beginning of the pandemic, everyone thought we were going to all die. Right? Let's be honest. People thought this was Contagion. That was the reason why that was the most popular movie. People literally thought we were all going to die and everybody was going to die. There was people, even in our group, even people you and I know mutually, that 2 million Americans are going to die within the first, 6 months. Ridiculous numbers. None of that has played out, despite the fact that, by the way, they're aggregating the numbers as a whole. They're still not breaking this out into seasons like a flu season. They're still aggregating it as a whole to try to prove it's worse than the flu, even though if they broke it out season by season, it's very comparable numbers to any typical flu season or even high flu season. But yeah, I mean that's just that's what we've seen. But Sterling, let me give a shout out to you right here. Where can people find you besides, I guess, stirlingcooper.com and where else?
Google me find me on YouTube. Just type in Stirling Cooper, spell it correctly like it is spelled here, and you'll find my YouTube, and you can learn you can learn how to sling dick properly, basically.
Keep it short, but girthy. So that being said, Sterling, thank you so much for joining me. Always a great conversation with you. We'll definitely have more. Look, this sort of work, this sort of stuff never goes away. So it's always good to have you on my short list of people to talk about this stuff because you are an insider. You know what you're talking about. So I really appreciate you coming on. And to everybody, thank you so much for joining. Glad the connection was a little bit better today. I know it might have been choppy for a couple seconds there, but overall, much better. Kim Jong-un is hating less, too busy thinking whether China is going to have him help with the invasion of Taiwan, but we're not even going to go there right now, guys. So that's a whole nother episode. But that being said, take care, and I will see you tomorrow at 7. We're going to be back in the normal time. Peace.